Howdy, and welcome back to another time-ticking YouTube video. Today we're going to be discussing watches in westerns and sort of the western aesthetic that surrounds American timepieces from the 19th century and onward. So stick around through this intro and we'll get into it with you. Even in today's day and age, film, television, video gaming, and other forms of entertainment are starting to see a resurgence in the Western genre. Between HBO's Westworld, Rockstar Games' Red Dead Redemption 2, and a seemingly endless stream of new Hollywood films, a present-day generation is experiencing a tradition in entertainment that goes back as far as 1903, and even further in timekeeping. Speaking of tradition, the modern Western wouldn't have a complete 19th century aesthetic without one traditional piece of wardrobe: the pocket watch. The watches of the Western world were a common companion for pioneering settlers in the old United States. They were also a great way to track the comings and goings of railway and stagecoach shipments, with occasionally unsavory intentions. As well, wall clocks and train station clocks played their own roles in the American West. Thus, the Wild West on-screen tends to feature these timepieces in both subtle and even overt ways. And although there are numerous examples of timekeeping in westerns, ahead we'll be covering a few that demonstrate practicality, presence, and fashionability of the timepieces in the Old West. We'll be looking at that both in these fictional examples and with real-life history. If we're going to look at watches in film, a great place to look is Gary Cooper's Western classic High Noon from 1952. Alongside Gary Cooper is Grace Kelly in this real-time movie that uses literal ticking clocks to move its story forward. As it goes, Cooper's character, a town marshal, learns that an old rival and his gang are due to arrive on a 12 o'clock train. Constantly being urged by his new bride and the townsfolk not to face the outlaw, the marshal anticipates his showdown with his eyes constantly checking the time. With plenty of close-ups of regulator-style clocks, swinging pendulums adding tensions to the scene, High Noon places its audience right in the middle of the action. With the events of the film happening without any flashbacks or cuts forward, this time-telling tension makes the story more compelling, especially considering that the marshal struggles to recruit deputies to aid him in his fight. Will the marshal survive? Time truly reveals the answer in beautifully excruciating minute-by-minute plays. Another great example of timekeeping in film, more specifically focused on the pocket watch, is the Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford. And although this is to some seen as a uniquely American way to wear a watch, it actually is borrowed from Victorian-style wear. The title that takes a bit of time to say in and of itself, this star-studded assassination flick features old Western timepieces subtly, but more specifically in the pocket watch fashion. And with screen time aside, the promotional poster for the film features Brad Pitt sporting a pocket watch fob on his waistcoat. The way that he wears this fob was a pretty prominent style in the Old West. Much like how Anthony Hopkins in Westworld wears his, Brad Pitt's Jesse James carries this timepiece quite handsomely, and in a style that isn't entirely American. In fact, the way that this was worn is actually referred to as a double Albert or Prince Albert fashion. This 19th century style featured a pendant or locket decorated with a family crest, various jewels, cameos, or other commemorative images attached to the chain. This chain ornamentation was then worn out of the pocket of a vest or waistcoat, as one would see, with the fob featured on the buttons in the center of the garment. If you look close enough at other older photographs, or at current Western genre wardrobes in film, this style can be seen on many a gentleman's vest, assuming they're gentlemen anyhow. Aside from the way that Brad Pitt wears the watch in the promotional materials, much akin to Anthony Hopkins' character in Westworld, as I mentioned, there's also a bit role that the watch plays in the film during one of the key scenes in the assassination flick. In an iconic night train robbery scene, Jesse James's gang is preparing themselves for what's going to be quite a night. As stunning visuals persist, there's a moment when the ticking of Jesse's pocket watch plays its role. The ticking, mixed with a solemn dirge being sung by Jeremy Renner, builds the tension of the scene. As it plays out, each man gathers his weapons, covers his face, and waits for the oncoming train to stop on the blocked tracks, featuring a tick, tick, tick coming out of Jesse James' pocket watch. It's a wonderful source of tension as well, helps build the watch into the psychology of the film and into the aesthetic of 19th century America. Moving away from film just a little bit, it's difficult to talk about westerns nowadays without mentioning Red Dead Redemption 2, the popular video game by Rockstar Games. Being no strangers to the western genre, Rockstar Games packs a lot of history into its most recent period piece. In fact, in terms of film history, there's a nearly shot-for-shot remake of the Jesse James movie famed train sequence, just to name one. Like Jesse James' gang, Red Dead's Vanderlyn gang has to rely on timekeeping to plan robberies as the story progresses. On top of this, the in-game looting system features period-appropriate pocket watches. As it goes, gamers playing as Arthur Morgan, the game's protagonist, can choose to interact with fallen enemies to remove their valuables. Pocket watches of varying style and value are featured through this aspect of the game. Rockstar smartly drops these watches to a varying degree, depending on the rarity of the metals used to craft them. As it were, just like the real-world 19th century, the silver pocket watches are the most common in-game. This nuance reflects the popularity of certain pocket watches in the mid to late 19th century, which featured silver in their designs and replaced many Swiss watches as a preference for everyday folks. More specifically, the silver pocket watches featured in this game would likely be Waltham pocket watches. A few years before the events of Red Dead Redemption 2 in 1857, the American Watch Company, later known as Waltham, began manufacturing watches with interchangeable parts. These timepieces were also made with coined silver, a 90% pure silver alloy that was typically used for silver dollars. This industrious step forward made watches more affordable to manufacture. By 1865, the American Watch Company was cranking out around 50,000 watches per year. This made American watches more friendly to the average consumer, moving Swiss manufacturers to different types of markets. Because of these innovations, folks living in the American West had more rugged, utilitarian, and customizable timepieces. Even in Red Dead Redemption 2, Rockstar features more ornate timepieces as well, which was actually fairly common to do, especially since silver was malleable enough to do engravings. So, if an owner of a pocket watch drops one, say in Red Dead Redemption, if it's made out of silver or gold or platinum, they often feature Victorian style inlays, much like they would have in real life 19th century America. Furthermore, anytime the game is paused in Red Dead Redemption 2, the player's pocket watch will display the in-game time. Since there are time-sensitive missions and side quests in the game, periodically checking the time can help lead to unlocking special Western film Easter eggs from other franchises. So much like High Noon, you're finding yourself checking the time for certain quests to help propel your story forward, something that's a bit of a motif in Westerns throughout film history. Although not all cowpokes and outlawish ruffians were time-toting timekeepers, many rambling rustics were without a proper timepiece, marking down the hours by solar observation and practiced intuition as many had before. However, having a timepiece was not an uncommon practice in the Wild West, and as it were, timepieces were a great way to ensure timely reunions with other folks, a faithful endeavor considering the wide open spaces and treacherous wilderness of the Wild West. And as the history books show, the West was eventually won, perhaps enveloped, by modern developments in industry and technology, both with timekeeping and, of course, much more advanced technologies. As the 20th century moved itself farther and farther from its rugged past, the look of the American West still holds an almost mythical quality to those looking back with nostalgia. So much so that, even today, watchmakers both domestically and abroad continue to make American West-style watches. These watches tend to feature silver inlaid bands or fobs like their predecessors. In that regard, a notable continuation of Western aesthetics comes in the Southwest style watches that are designed by Native Americans. Blending Native American jewelry styles with wristwatch dials, these timepieces have a uniquely Western look. Often holding colorful, precious stones and made from silver, these watches are sold to help gain revenue for reservations and continue a tradition of design that goes even further back than any European influence in timekeeping. Furthermore, brands like Montana and Ralph Lauren, among many others, continue to release custom Western-style timepieces. Modern metalworkers and leatherworkers can still make distinct and Victorian-style designs, much like the ones that were featured on 19th century pocket watches worn in the West. Blending outside influences and new ideas in design, just like the American story in and of itself, American West timepieces hold a great fascination. They also mark a time in horological history where industrialization began to democratize the modern timepiece. So whether a person was planning a trip, running a train, or running down a train, the US Western expansion came with plenty of time measurement. So the next time you see a Western on the big screen or on the home screen, keep an eye out for the featured timepieces. They might be playing their own special role before the credits roll over a favorite character riding off into the sunset. Hello, and thanks for watching our YouTube video today. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like, and you can find similar videos right here. For more new and interesting content from Time Sticking on our channel, please subscribe at the link here. And for more information about wristwatch repair and watch maintenance generally, you can find us at timesticking.com. Thanks so much and have a great day.